Hi, I'm Susan Bennett. If you have a tendency to beat yourself up when you make a mistake or fail at something, this is for you. Remember Dr. Seuss, one of the most loved authors of children's books ever? His first manuscript was rejected 28 times before it was finally accepted and put into print. And did you know that James Dyson, the vacuum cleaner guy, it took him 15 years and 5,126 failed prototypes before they finally got a working bagless vacuum. Here's another one. All 12 major publishing houses rejected J.K. Rowling's manuscript for Harry Potter before Bloomsbury finally gave it a go. No, it's easy to look at other people's successes and assume there's something special about them, like they're just born to be successful, because most of the time that's all we see. We don't see how many times they've just fallen flat on their faces before they succeeded, or how often they still fall on their faces as they continue to succeed. But often for ourselves, it's the other way around. We tend to notice our failures, our stuff-ups, our embarrassing moments more than we notice our successes, which gives us a bit of a distorted view of reality and can really have a deflating effect on our confidence. It's not that successful people don't mess up. Actually, sometimes they do a really good job of it. And they also feel disheartened, lost, embarrassed, or like a complete failure sometimes. What sets them apart is their ability to get back up and get back up and get back up, just like we all did when we were learning to walk. It's that persistence that makes the difference. In fact, success often comes as a result of failure. You know, Thomas Edison would never have invented the light bulb if he didn't first work out 1,000 ways how not to do it. But as we all know from experience, it's not always easy to get back up, because sometimes it really hurts to fall. It might hurt us financially and what feels like wasted time, and almost always it hurts the ego. And then all those unhelpful stories can start popping up. You know, like you're not good enough, you're a failure, you'll never succeed. And with those thoughts come all those uncomfortable emotions of frustration, embarrassment, shame, despair. But thankfully, there are some things that we can do to make this process a whole lot easier. And I'm going to show you in this 4-step process. The first step is to let yourself feel whatever's coming up for you. And I know you might be thinking, but wait, Susan, it doesn't feel good. I don't want to feel it. Of course, that's a really natural thing to be thinking. And so we might be tempted to just push those feelings down so we don't have to deal with them or distract ourselves from them. But if we do that, those feelings will eventually come and bite us in the behind. Here's how it works. Imagine you've got another vessel system running through your whole body, like your blood vessel system, which is bringing blood to every part of your body, but this one is an emotion vessel system, which allows your feelings to flow. Now, if you're to push your feelings down, it's like you're creating a block in these feeling vessels, and there's nowhere for them to go. The more we suppress, the more they build up, there's more and more pressure in those vessels, and eventually something has to give. It's got to go somewhere. One of two things can happen. Number one is that it can end in a dramatic explosion, and you've got emotion splattered all over you, and everyone around you's got emotion sprayed all over them. It ain't pretty. And it's only a temporary release because the block is still there, ready for the pressure to build up and for another explosion to happen down the track. So that's the first thing that can happen. The second thing that can happen when we don't want to deal with our emotions is that this emotion vessel can spring a leak on the inside. Then the emotions start to ooze into you like a toxic chemical and can cause withdrawal, shutdown, anxiety, depression. Also not a nice option. Both of these alternatives to feeling our emotions can lead to physical illnesses too if we keep doing it long term. So don't do that. A much better way to deal with our emotions is to let ourselves feel them, which opens up the feeling vessels again so it can all flow naturally through our body, can be processed and released. Now, I just want to make it really clear here that when I say feeling your emotions is important, I don't mean wallowing in them. Even though it might feel good to occasionally grab a tub of ice cream and a box of tissues and curl up on the couch in front of a cheesy television series, it's not what I'm talking about. Our emotions all have some kind of physical expression in the body, some kind of sensation. That's how we know we're happy or grumpy or embarrassed or whatever it is we're feeling. It's just about noticing, where in my body do I feel it? I might notice a tightness in my chest, so I pay attention to that and allow it to be there. Or I might notice somersaults in my stomach, so I pay attention to that and allow that to be there. Could be anywhere in your body. It's just about noticing those physical sensations and getting really curious about what it feels like without getting caught up in the story. All those thoughts, explanations, all that chatter. Now, we're not trying to push our feelings through this imaginary vessel, but noticing them, allowing to be there so they don't have to cling. And imagine making space for them so they don't get stuck in there. And when they're ready, they can then flow out on their own. Definitely easier said than done, but really worth practicing. Now, if you find that your feelings are too big, or too distressing for you to deal with on your own, that's your sign that you need someone to help you through this. Perhaps a counsellor or some other kind of trained professional. Make sure you take care of you. So that is step 1 in our 4-step process. Letting ourselves feel whatever's coming up for us. Really important. Step 2 is to feel some self-compassion. Now let's imagine that someone you really care about, maybe your partner or a really good friend or even a little baby or a puppy, someone you can easily feel compassion for. Imagine that they're really suffering somehow. Even let yourself close your eyes if that's safe for you right now, and imagine how you'd hold that person or animal that's suffering. With care, with love, with absolute compassion. Feel that. That's the way you need to be holding yourself. It's about being warm, caring, understanding towards yourself instead of being critical or judgy. Now, if this is new for you, this might take a bit of practice too. But again, it's totally worth the effort. When you're feeling hurt, you deserve compassion. It's healing. And no one's compassion is more healing than your own. Now, before we get into step 3, I just want to emphasize, underline, highlight how important it is that you've already been through step 1 and step 2. It's really hard for our minds to think very well when there are still a lot of emotions running around the place and your body doesn't really feel like you've listened to what's going on for it. You're likely to get a much better outcome from step 3 after you've allowed yourself to really feel the physical sensations of the emotions and you've given yourself plenty of self-compassion. So step 3 is looking into what learnings you can take from the experience. There'll always be something you can learn, and that's the gold. Sometimes it can be hard to find the learning straight away, and it might even take 6 months or even years down the track before you finally get an understanding of how you grew from the experience. But if you look hard, you will find something, even if it's just that you learned one way that wasn't successful. But hey, that's one way you won't have to try again. Now, I recommend that you get yourself out a journal and let your hand be free in writing whatever comes up for you in response to these 2 questions. What was this experience trying to teach me? And how can I use this experience to do better next time? These questions prompt you to switch into a growth mindset rather than a fixed one. So a fixed mindset tends to see our skills and abilities as fixed or not being able to change. So it thinks, why bother trying when I'm only going to fail? Whereas a growth mindset says that trying is always valuable because it sees failure as a chance to learn. Now, researchers found that a growth mindset is associated with a whole heap of benefits, including increased motivation, performing better, improved problem solving, relationships, and overall greater psychological well-being. That's pretty sweet. Now finally, step 4 is to come back to what's most important to you and plan your next move. Now by this stage, we've processed the failure, so we're not going to dwell on it anymore because we don't need to. We've taken what's useful from it so we can let the rest go and start to move on. And sure, there might be some emotions that continue coming up for you, and that's okay. You can come back to step 1 as many times as you need. If you just focus on the physical sensations, you'll find that the intensity and frequency of those feelings will start to lessen over time. So it's time now to reflect on, what do you want to do with your new learnings? Do you want to continue on the same path that you were on before, but with that bit of extra wisdom to help you on your way? Or is there some kind of course correction that might be needed? And what would that look like? Might be helpful to get that journal back out again and write down what comes up for you, or do a voice recording on your phone. But once you've got yourself a plan that aligns with your values and what's most important to you, you'll probably find that you start to feel more motivated, more energized, and it'll be time to get back out there. Remember, failing does not mean you're not good enough. It means you're still figuring things out, like the rest of us. Sometimes this process of moving through your emotions, picking yourself up and getting back on the horse can be deepened and sped up by connecting with supportive people in your world. Speaking with the right people like your partner, friends, family, a therapist or a coach can be so healing and help you get that motivation back quicker. Now, if you're curious about whether I could be the right support person for you, please go ahead and book in a free discovery session just below. Absolutely no pressure, just an opportunity to explore what could be helpful for you going forward. Now, if you haven't already done those exercises, it's time to get cracking, because knowing is just the first step. Doing is what's really going to make the difference. And that's important, because the world becomes a better place when you commit wholeheartedly to doing what you're here to do. So go do your thing.